Hey guys, KoBaC here with another Halo Mattel Series 1 action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Captain Poopy Pants, Spartan Locke, and we'll go ahead and just get into this. So, I don't know what it is. Perhaps Mattel and McFarlane both just hate Spartan Locke as much as I do. Because he cannot hold either of his guns. His guns? His guns. He cannot hold either of his guns. Except like in more of like a down relaxing pose. Both of the guns, the plasma caster and the battle rifle, which we don't get with any of the other figures, so it's great to be able to get two different weapons from this line, cannot fit because when you try to cross the chest, get off the battle rifle, when you try to cross in a way that he might like hold to shoot, you can't get the piece into like his shoulder because it pops the armor off just like that. Pops it off. And that happens with the battle rifle and the plasma caster. So great that we got two different guns, but useless for this figure because of the way that his armor is. Now, would this work better if his armor was glued on like McFarlane's and wasn't removable? Possibly, but you would still be putting a lot of pressure, because if it's going to push off the armor piece, it means that there's a lot of pressure, there's something happening there, and if we were to do it anyway, it might work, but maybe it would add a lot of strain and would stretch the hands, or would end up resulting in the gun breaking or something else like that. Both of the guns do get a weapon peg. As you can see, there's one sticking off here, and these are removable, so you can see right through it. And you can just use the longer version. You'll notice when you open them, there's one that's a little bit smaller. The longer versions are for the back, but both the weapons do have weapon peg holes. Before I forget, there is a link in the description, as much as I'm not a huge fan of this figure, which we're going to cover here in a minute. There is a link in the description if you do want to pick this figure up from Amazon and get it delivered to your house, so you don't have to go out and try to hunt these guys down. Especially if you're trying to be a completionist and trying to get the full set. One other accessory that this figure comes with is the neck torso piece to build the Alpha Crawler. All the figures from Mattel Series 1 all include, except for the Ghost with the Elite Officer, they all include a part to be able to build the Alpha Crawler. So he comes with like the upper torso and neck area. So that'll be really cool when I get to review that. I just hit my camera. Cool. Anyway, moving on. So let's go ahead and get into the paint scheme of this guy. You know what? First, because I'm going to forget, I do want to cover the battle rifle. This is a McFarlane battle rifle from Halo 5. I believe this is the one that's actually from the other Spartan Locke. And you can tell that it is significantly, the Mattel one is significantly larger. I don't mind the paint scheme. Like, I really like this. McFarlane did sweet with this one. But I mean, this is okay. Like, I'll take this. If I have to get it, I'm like, it's okay. But the scale is tremendous, even though that the Mattel figures are only a ½ inch taller than the McFarlane ones. So why do you have to have such huge guns? It's not the end of the world. I mean, they fit in scale with the Mattel figures, but I mean, yeah. And if you did want to, I know it's really tiny compared to him, this battle rifle can be held by Locke. I did get him to hold it because it's smaller. He was able to hold it. So there is that. Alright, so paint scheme for Locke here. With all the Mattel figures, it's fairly basic. I would say that Locke probably has a little bit more the appearance of detail work compared to some of the others, like Master Chief is very just plain olive drab green in a lot of places. And you kind of have a little bit of variation here with Locke. So looking at the helmet here, zoom in real quick. Looking at the helmet here, you can see pretty good detail work, I would say. Especially because a lot of people are bashing Mattel. I mean, that face has got a lot going on. Now, there's not a lot of paint to it, but that's kind of the way he is. There's not like a bunch of, there's detail work in the game, even with the McFarlane figures, but there's not a lot of variation in paint. Flip them over here, see the back. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the way that some of this tubing is painted. Like this one here, you can see gray, blue, gray. Awesome. Over here, you just see just blue everywhere. Bleh. And they did the same thing on this side. It's like they got two different people to paint them. So you got gray, blue, gray. Very nice. Over here, it's like, what are you doing? You having hiccups when you're painting or something? Goodness. So there is that inconsistency that you didn't really get with McFarlane figures. You know, and articulation of this figure, his head can rotate. But that's it. You're not going to get a lot out of his neck. I don't know why. It's the way that his helmet is designed, because he has a double ball joint in here. It's just the way that his helmet is. The way that it fits on the neck, it just fits on the neck. So the way that he's going to look is always like he's in deep thought, or he is really sad the Master Chief just ate the last ice cream bar. And it's just, he's like always like, oh man, I hate life. I'm so sad. So for the arm here, get it underneath the shoulder. There we go. Can lift up standard for the Mattel figures. Lower it all the way down. Not a huge fan of that. I wish he could lower his arm a little bit more, a little bit closer to the leg, like, you know, how you and I can do it. It does swivel at the bicep, bend at the elbow. Yes, very good. Bend the back at the elbow. And then the forearm can rotate 360, and it can also disconnect the shoulder armor. How about that? That's fancy. Fancy pants. Now, if you didn't know, all of the armor for the Mattel figures is completely removable. Why? I don't really know, because like Locke and Master Chief, like I'm not really going to change your armor around, but you do have the option, and I like having options. The hand here, rotate 360, can also bend at the wrist. And then bends at the waist. Kick the leg up to about that high. Back down to regular stance. Got a double jointed knee. Fantastic. I love that. Thank you, Mattel. Mwah. Thank you. Then it also bends at the foot. Now, he doesn't get as big of a range of motion with his foot just because of the way his armor is designed. Like Linda, Master Chief, they get a pretty good range. It's just the way that their armor is. Locke's hits. So, yeah. And then the foot also will rotate 360 and bend here kind of at like an angle. So you can get them like in different stances. But, again, the armor prevents the ankle from really rotating a whole lot. You can do it, though, if you take the armor off. So his articulation is good because I know that the base figure underneath is good. His armor is just the thing that's very restricting. And speaking of which, his butt is huge, which blocks the range of motion. And it's not so bad for their legs without the armor on, but man, a lot of the Spartan armors really block getting a little bit more articulation out of them. And maybe it's not as big of a deal. Mattel thought, well, you know, it's not forward. It's more of the backward that we don't really care about. It's more of, can you walk forward, and that part's good. So, yeah. All right, so moving on into scale, here is the SH Figure Arts Mario, Figma Link, the Elite Zealot from Mattel Series 1, and the McFarlane Spartan Locke. Now, obviously, the first thing everyone's going to see is like, oh, the paint job on this one is amazing. This one's poop. Well, you know, you got two different companies, two very different ways of doing things. The way I look at it is that I would always take articulation over paint job. The reason being is that I can paint any of the other figures from this line myself. Do I want to paint them? No, absolutely not. I don't want to have to paint them, but I can. I cannot add articulation. I cannot add detail work, and I like the detail work. I think it's pretty good. The paint job could use a little bit of touching up in certain areas. I think it's good. I think it's definitely good enough for collecting. I mean, some of the figures like Master Chief, the Red Helios Grill, even Linda, I like those ones. Locke maybe just needs a little bit of love or something. But I will say that I'm not a fan of Locke, the Mattel Locke, in that he looks really fat. Look at the legs. The legs. I mean, this guy is only a ½ inch taller than the McFarlane one, and he looks like, I don't know, he's midlife crisis Spartan Locke. Like, the legs are just not good. Now, I know that the armor fits on Spartan Locke, and I know that the armor from like Master Chief and from the Blue Aerosol and stuff will fit on Spartan Locke's body. So it's not really so much Spartan Locke as much as his armor is just designed and it just looks kind of chunky. And maybe what the problem is because it's rounded, he has a very smooth, kind of like aquatic type armor compared to like Master Chief, who's blocky and tough looking. You get a very smooth and very agile one with Locke, and it just doesn't pull off very well with Mattel's way of doing things. Over here, I think it looks really nice. The difference, though, is that I don't really know how like there would be a person in the McFarlane figure. You know? Like, I could see a person being inside this armor. It's not attractive, but I could see it being in there. And on the McFarlane one, it's like his legs get really skinny, and he's supposed to have a layer of like armor, like pants and stuff underneath that, and then the armor and his legs. I mean, it's incredibly skin tight, which I know the armor is supposed to be, but I mean, it just looks incredibly skin tight. His calves look crushed. Just saying. So take that for what that's worth. Anyway, obviously they're very different. Obviously, the Mattel line is in a different way of doing things. I would say if you said, KoBaC, look, man, I've got enough money. I'm going to buy 1, 2, maybe 3 of these figures. Is Spartan Locke in that top 3? No. I would say that this should be the last figure that you pick up. I figure that Locke is probably going to be the one, and I could be wrong, but I figure that Locke will probably be the one that is in overabundance. That he will be the figure that's left behind. All the others will get bought up. Linda, Master Chief, the Red Helios Skrill, the Elite Zealot, because that'll probably be the rare one. That's just how they do things. You know, a lot of figure lines do like the aliens, or the common troop of the bad guys is the one that's really hard to get your hands on because they just don't put as many in the cases. They'll put a lot of Chief. They'll put a lot of Locke probably. They'll put a lot of Linda maybe. But they won't put a lot of the Elite Zealot. But I would say that Locke is definitely not in your top 3. I wouldn't say he's in your top 4 or top 5. Now, obviously, if you want to collect all the parts to build the Alpha Crawler, you're going to have to buy one. And you could always just sell it back on eBay, or you could just keep it in your collection and just add it, and it's just really great. I love the artwork on the box, you know? But him not being able to hold guns effectively is a huge bummer. Is a huge bummer. Because, you know, these things are supposed to be sold to, like, 8 and up. An 8-year-old that can't get his toy to be able to hold his gun is pretty much useless. If I had that when I was a kid, man, I'd be like, you're out of here, buddy. You know, compared to like Master Chief, Linda, everybody else can hold theirs, except for this diaper baby. So I would say that overall, I'm going to give him a 2 out of 5. He doesn't look super great, and that's not necessarily Mattel's fault as much as just the way that they do the armor and everything. It's just the way that it comes out. I don't really care for the way he looks, but I'm not a big fan of Locke. I might be a little biased. I do like the weapon choices. I'm glad we get 2 different rifles or long guns, you know, compared to like getting like a Magnum and an SMG or something when we already have 2 other Magnums in the series. He fits in scale with the other, you know, Mattel line, but he's definitely the least favorite of all the ones that I have. So take that for what it's worth. Anyway, guys, what do you think? Do you think that Locke is pretty much useless, or do you think he's great? You want to make sure that you get him because you really want to have Chief and Locke pose together, or, you know, what do you think? Anyway, guys, thank you for watching, commenting, subscribing, and as I said before, if you do want to purchase this figure still, that there is a, and I'm not saying still is like to completely bash him, I'm not saying don't buy him. I'm just saying, you know, I do these reviews to try to educate you guys and let you guys see pros and cons of the figures that I buy so you don't have to make bad choices and be disappointed. You know, instead make an educated decision, really know what you want. Get that 1 or 2 figures that you really want rather than buying a couple that you're not really sure and like, these suck, I want something else. So anyway, thank you guys again, and I'll talk to you guys all again soon.